What's going on, everybody? This is going to be very new for us all. I got the Twitter space right here for Gamecock Central in front of me. So if you're listening to us on Twitter tonight, we appreciate it. And if you're watching online right now, we appreciate you guys as well. But this is going to be something that we're going to do every Tuesday night. This is something that I was very excited about when I joined Gamecock Central. Obviously, some things have happened over the last couple of weeks, as some of you guys know, with my new gig covering the Patriots in Boston this fall, but we will still be covering the Gamecocks, and I'm very, very excited for that. And we'll adjust accordingly too if anything does come up. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Mike Yuva. I work over at Gamecock Central. I'm the director of digital content, and we are going to have a lot of fun with this show. Now, why am I on here with Twitter Space tonight? Well, we want to be able to expand this show. We want to be able to expand. So in the future, moving forward, there's going to be a function that will allow you guys to call directly into the show. Tonight, unfortunately, just is not that night, but that's all right because we're going to allow people on Twitter Space to hop in. They're going to have an opportunity to have their voices heard. So if you guys have any questions, anything you want to talk about, anything you're excited about, let us know. Let us know. In addition to that, I have another announcement. This weekend, we are also going to launch a Gamecock Central live post-game show. That will allow you guys to call in directly after the games. We're very, very excited about that as well. So we have a lot of exciting things going on at Gamecock Central. If you guys, I got to remember that I have the phone in front of me, so hopefully you guys are hearing me clearly because I'm trying to speak into the camera here and the microphone for the video. But we're gonna add all this out. So, and Jeff, yes, that is a plaid couch. We're working remotely here, Jeff. So if anyone has any questions, if you're on with us right now, whether it be YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, and you want to ask a question, let us know. We're going to pop those up on the side. If you want to be able to be heard directly, let me know as well. On Twitter Space, raise your hand. We'll get the microphone passed over to you guys, and we'll get this thing going. Twitter Space has been absolutely incredible with the Gamecock community. We've seen that before. But we want to be able to take it to that next level. That's what Gamecock Central is all about. That's what Brian Shoemaker, Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark, Colin Taylor, all those guys over there, that's what they envision doing. So that is what we want to be able to do. We'll keep this thing going, though. We're very, very excited about this. I'll have more information about how we're going to do the call-in show on Saturday after the game and what we'll do on those Tuesday nights and how you guys can call in. So, AJ, I'm going to get to you in a minute, buddy. I see you right now on Twitter Space. I'm juggling like 8 things at once, so hopefully we can be able to make this all work, and Brian Shoemaker will not get upset with me doing all this. We're going to make this work, though. It's going to be great. All right, AJ, you're leading us off in the inaugural Talking Tuesday GC Live edition.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you your opinion on the new NIL thing and how big it's going to be for us on the recruiting trail.
All right, appreciate it, AJ. I think the big thing is this is a game changer for multiple reasons. One, the fact that South Carolina is the first major school to do this in FBS, game changer. But the fact that when you look at the language of the contract and what it's going to allow South Carolina to do, the fact that Clemson will not be able to take advantage of it, in-state schools will not be able to take advantage of it next year. In addition to that, the SEC, other schools in the SEC, they won't be able to take advantage of it in the first couple of years. I think it's big. I think South Carolina hit this one out of the park for multiple reasons, but the big reason, in addition to obviously the fact that it's NIL opportunity and they're adjusting with the times, is the fact that they took the time. They took the time to focus on that language that's going to be able to put. They're going to be able to focus on keeping things in state. I'm sorry about that, guys. If you're on the Twitter space, you may have not heard that, AJ. I'll kind of just reiterate that again. We're juggling a couple of things tonight until we iron out everything, have a system to be able to call in. But for those of you on Twitter space, what I was saying is it's huge because South Carolina is taking advantage of doing something no other FBS program has done. But on top of that, they're putting up a fence, literally, the fact that it is so exclusive, that they did their homework, they did their due diligence to make sure that Clemson's not going to be able to do something with this company within that first year. And then, the SEC, other schools in the SEC as well in the next couple of years. So very big job, great job by South Carolina. Sorry that I had to reiterate that for everyone else that's listening, not on Twitter. We're going to continue to scroll along. AJ, we appreciate that. If you want to ask a question, request on Twitter Space. I am also going through some of the comments here, either if you're on YouTube, Facebook Live, wherever. So we're juggling like 8 things at once. We'll make this work, and we'll get to some of your comments too on the side. We appreciate AJ leading things off, though. All right, famously, Garnet Sports, you're up. You're good, famously, Garnet Sports.
Mike, what's up, man?
What?
Formerly Visor and Fancy Garnet. Hey, quick question, man. About Kevin Harris, what did you think about him getting cut today, man? What's your thoughts about that, watching them in a preseason?
So the thing with Kevin Harris, I was a little surprised, but not really. And the reason why I'm not surprised is because I think from everything that I've been told, and I'm obviously, I don't have the same type of sources I have up here like I do in South Carolina with the Gamecocks, but from everything I was told about Kevin Harris, it seemed like they wanted to be able to groom him. They wanted to be able to give him that practice squad year. Guy that obviously, for everything that he did 2 seasons ago, leading the SEC in rushing yards, still coming back from that back injury. I know South Carolina said it was a minor procedure, but I mean, shoot, when is anything a minor procedure when it comes to back injuries? Notice Grayson Pup Howard hopped in for a minute. Shout out to him. But I think with Kevin, what really was helping him, he was doing some good things on special teams as an up back. That was something I really noticed. I think that will help his chances, whether it be with the Patriots in the long run, whether they bring him back and he clears waivers. He has to clear waivers first. If he clears that, he's going to get signed with the Patriots. I think I feel confident saying that. If not, I feel like another team's going to want to bring him on board. I think with Kevin, it was disappointing, of course, to see that fumble happen the other night, because what he did in college, 358 carries, only 1 career fumble, that is what separates him from everyone else. That and the fact that as the game went on, as we saw so many times when he was playing at South Carolina, when everyone else got tired, he was able to just take it to another level. So, and I wrote this the other day on Gamecock Central, as much as it absolutely friggin' stunk that he had that fumble late in the game against the Raiders, I think it was probably the best thing that could have happened to him, because I don't think you're going to see that young man fumble the ball again. Talking with one of my colleagues that actually was the color commentator for that game, Scott Zolak, former Patriots quarterback, he mentioned he just tucked it up a little, left it up a little too high before he hit the ground. So those are just the little things that you learn quickly. You're not in college anymore, and I think Kevin would be the first to tell you that. So we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see other guys that got cut today. No, Nick Muse was another one. I think Nick will certainly be brought back with the Vikings. He did just an outstanding job blocking in preseason. Made some good catches as well. So, we'll see. We're going to have a full list on Gamecock Central from the guys on the guys that are in the league and where they're going. If they got cut, who's their new home? If they signed a practice squad, which team signed them. So we'll take care of that. We'll get you guys all caught up on that. But appreciate you asking that. Swift, I know that you're requesting a mic, so here you go, bud. Swift, you're up. Swift. All right, Swift, whenever you're good, you let us know and you come back to us. But again, guys, if you're just joining us, this is something new that we're going to be doing every Tuesday night. It's going to be called GC Live, Talking Tuesday Nights. We're also going to be adding a post-game show starting this week. And Swift, you let me know when you're good. I see Steven's got his hand up. So, Steven, we're going to pass the mic to you. And Steven, you can go whenever you want, bud.
All right, Mike, after us getting Desmond Yu the other day, did you ever think, I mean, I know you guys follow closer than we do, but did you ever think it's possible just how good this O-line and D-line haul so far South Carolina's gotten? I think they're now, 7 out of the 9 on both lines of scrimmage are 4-stars. I mean, it's just incredible what Beamer and this staff have done.
It's so old school, the approach, right? And it's cliche. We're seeing it so much on Twitter. So it's like, all right, well, we're seeing it on Twitter, trenches, right? I mean, you think about it. It's the God's honest truth. It's really what separates, I feel like, the SEC from other conferences is just the size and the physicality and the speed on the offense and defensive line. I mean, certainly the Big Ten has produced plenty of talented offensive linemen. You can even say the ACC as well. But when you're talking about defensive players too, on the defensive line, just the speed, you need to be able to have it. And I think for the last couple of years, South Carolina just unfortunately – they haven't been able to have it the way that they've needed it to be successful. They've showed sparks. They've had players. I mean, you can look at the defensive line in particular, the talent that South Carolina has produced over the last couple of years with the number of guys that are in the NFL, for crying out loud. I mean, holy cow. And just the studs that have come out. I mean, shoot, you're going to see one of them this Saturday when Jadeveon Clowney comes back to get his jersey retired. So they've had guys, but now it's putting it all together. And the fact that you're getting some very talented guys, some high 4-stars, let me throw this out there. I get it. I understand people want to see 5 stars. If you look at the On3 database right now for the class of 2023, the number of 5-star commitments out there, or 5-star prospects, I should say, there's only 31 of them. There's only 31. There's not many. So the fact that South Carolina is getting the caliber players that they are right now, and I know that some people are tired of hearing of this stat because it was the old coaching staff, but before Beamer arrived last year, 6 wins combined. 6 wins combined in those final 2 years before Beamer arrived. You get 7 wins. You win the Duke's Mayo Bowl. It's not like you won the Outback Bowl, RIP. It's not like you won the Sugar Bowl. You won the Duke's Mayo Bowl. And yet, they've been able to create a lot of momentum. Why? People are believing. People are believing. People inside that building, number one, and that's what you need to be able to do first and foremost, are believing. Outside, the fan base, the boosters, people that cover this team on a national level are starting to take attention, starting to grab, it's grabbing their attention, saying, what's going on in Columbia? What's going on in Columbia? And now you're starting to see it with these commitments. The fact that South Carolina is up to 16 on On3's recruiting database right now for team rankings. It says something that they've been able to do this as quickly as they have. So the fact that they're not just getting players in the trenches, but the fact that they're getting players in the trenches that are freaking good, very good players, it says something. It really does. And the fact that they're all coming in the same class, that's scary, man. That's scary. It's scary to think what that could lead to. So I think it's great for multiple reasons, but I think the big reason being is just the fact that you're getting guys that understand what Beamer's trying to do, what he's trying to create, and they're all bought into it. So give him big credit. Give credit to Jimmy Lindsey. Give credit to everyone across the board. Sterling Lucas has done a tremendous job with recruiting. You can look on the other side of the ball. Greg Atkins has done a great job. All these coaches have done a good job when it comes to recruiting, but especially on the offensive and defensive line. And then throw Clayton White in there as well. I'm going to take some questions here on the comment section. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, you can send a message in directly. A little backed up right now, but we will do our best to be able to answer as many people's questions as we possibly can. Kevin asks, Juice Wells felt really confident about having a big game against Georgia State secondary. Should we be that confident? Well, Kevin, I don't know if you've seen any of the stories that I've put out the last couple months since Juice announced his commitment to South Carolina after transferring in from James Madison. I've been extremely high on this kid, And the reason being is it's not just from what I've seen from him in the limited time that we've seen in practice or from talking to people that are in that building and see him every day, but it's talking to people that had a game plan against him when he was at James Madison. talking to several coaches, talking to a defensive coordinator in his conference that had a game plan against him, they say that he's just an absolute nightmare because he has the ability to play both on the inside and outside. And even when you and everyone else is, everyone's mother in the state, everyone knows the ball's going to Juice, and he knows that the defense knows it's going to him. He doesn't clam up. He welcomes that. So I get it. This isn't at the FCS, even though James Madison, before they moved up to FBS this offseason, very, very, very good school, produced a lot of talent, has a lot of talent that comes their way. He's going to have to do it at the SCS level, at the FBS level in the SEC. So the fact that he has a quarterback in Spencer Rattler, the fact that there's so many weapons around him, I feel like it's really going to allow him to be able to show the talent that he has and what he's capable of doing. So I think he's just excited more than anything. I think he's very excited. And what that shows me is that South Carolina has him in their plans big time this weekend. Maybe he's just excited. But I don't think a guy goes out there, talks the way that he talked today, if he doesn't know that they're trying to get him the ball. One of the things I mentioned today in my Gamecock Central piece, 2022 predictions on the football team, I have Wells leading the team in receiving touchdowns this year. I think that's how much of a contribution he's going to have to this team this year. So very excited to be able to see him hit the field this year. Swift, you there, buddy? All right, Swift. Swift is swifting away over here. Try to go back to him. I'm going to continue to scroll down through these. Appreciate you guys joining us again. If you are just hopping on right now, this is a new show Tuesday nights. GC Live, Talking Tuesday Nights. We're also going to be adding a post-game show starting this Saturday with Gamecock Central. Very excited about that. We're going to have a call-in function. So right now, that's why we're double dipping. That's why I keep looking down. We have the cell phone right here with the Gamecock Central Twitter account, doing a Twitter space, trying to expand the brand right here with this show. But we're very excited to do that. And we're very excited to be able to hear from you guys because that's what it's about. So if you're on Twitter space, you want to be able to ask a question, ask a question. You don't have to hold the mic all night. That's all right. Hop on in. You're excited. You know you are. Big game this week. Being able to see Sean Elliott out there too is going to be very exciting. I think hearing what Shane Beamer had to say about him today, not surprising, right? Not surprising to hear Shane talk so highly about the man and his family. And just like a guy that, look, he was thrown into a real crappy situation. There's no other way to put it. He was thrown into a real crappy situation with everything that took place at the end of the Spurrier era. And yet he went about it with class, and he's done a good job over at Georgia State. There's no other way to put it. He's done a very good job over there at Georgia State. And he's just a very well-respected man. So I'm excited to just see what that reception is going to be like for him when he comes back out onto Williams-Brice on Saturday. Jeff asks, I think we need a further discussion on the plaid couch, though. Look, we're working remotely up in Boston. It's got to work with what you got. So we got the plaid couch. Not my taste, but that's what we're dealing with. Billy asks, bigger game, Kentucky or Arkansas? I have South Carolina losing to Arkansas, and the reason being is just because it's week 2. I feel like, especially this offense, they're going to be ironing out a lot of their kinks. They're going to have to. There's going to be growing pains, as there typically is with an offense early on in the year. You have a new quarterback. I'd say that Kentucky game, because if they lose to Arkansas, if they were to start the year off 1-2, right? I know some people might act like the world's coming to an end, but at the same time, too, I think some people would look at it and be like, all right, hey, look, it's a tough schedule. Arkansas is a team that could finish pretty high in the SEC West. I think this is the year, though, Gamecock fans want to see South Carolina take care of Kentucky. I know it's on the road, but with everything that's kind of took place over the last couple of weeks, I think people want to be able to see that end. And I think it will end. You know, I know Beamer downplayed it. I think it was last week when asked about the comments from Stoops. I wouldn't expect Shane to say anything else. He's a classy guy, took the high road. But I can tell you internally, and I'm not saying specifically Shane, but internally, they're ticked off about those comments that were made. It bothered them. And when they play Kentucky in October, it's going to be added motivation. It's going to be added motivation. That's a game that they're already talking about. Now, the focus, of course, is this week with Georgia State, but that's a game that they're itching for. So I would say that's a bigger game just because when you're talking about trying to compete for SEC East titles, that's a team that's ahead of you. You need to be able to out-recruit them, which right now, and we'll have to wait and see until we get to December, until pen meets paper. It's great right now, but let's wait, right? South Carolina is able to do that and just continuing able to get some momentum from a recruiting standpoint. But more importantly, you're able to translate that into wins. Now you're working with something. Now you're working with something. So it's not to say the Arkansas game's not important. I have a lot of questions going into that game. That'll be Spencer Rattler's first SEC game, first SEC road test at that, a hostile environment. You're playing at 11 o'clock local time. What's South Carolina going to do? How vanilla will they keep it this weekend against Georgia Tech? Will they have to show a little something extra? Arkansas, you're going to have to throw everything at them. You're going to have to throw everything at them. So that's one thing that I would say about that. Steven, you got your hand raised?
Yeah, Mike, I was going to ask you, if you haven't got into it yet, what's your opinion on the depth chart? I know some people were surprised that Mo was starting over Sherrod at linebacker, but I just wonder what your thoughts were on the depth chart.
I'm not surprised by it. I don't think there's anything too earth-shattering about it, right? Typical week one depth chart. You're going to have to wait and see how things kind of play out in terms of, maybe some of those guys who are competing for 2 spots, 3s, right? Running back, of course, wide receiver. How does that kind of shake out over the next couple of weeks? I think the only thing that stood out to me is just the number of young guys that are in 2 spots. And I think that speaks volumes to the recruiting job that South Carolina has done in their short time of being here. And not just recruiting, but just development of young guys. Now, obviously, at the end of the day, they're going to have to be able to produce on the field. It's great if you can do it in practice. It's great if you can do it in a scrimmage under the lights in front of, maybe 100 people, including the janitor and a guy, working the concession stands. But what is that going to look like come Saturday night this fall? Not just against Georgia State. I mean, that's important. It's going to be if South Carolina is able to get up with a comfortable lead, it'll give opportunities to some of the younger guys. I don't know if we're going to be able to see that as much. You'd like to see that. But I think some of these younger guys are coming in and they just have the right mindset. They have the right attitude. And we're seeing that as a trend right now. We're seeing that as a trend from the guys that they're recruiting. They're bought in. They're bought in. They want to be here. They want to compete. And I think, too, the other thing, too, is we're noticing guys come in, obviously, from the transfer portal. That's the world of college football that we're in right now. There's some talented players. So I think, look, even though we see some of these younger guys coming in, pushing for 2 spots right now, what does that look like a year from now? Are they on the outside looking in? Just because the talent that they're recruiting, both out of high school and both out of the transfer portal, it's allowing them to really do some special things. So that was one thing that really stood out to me, is just the fact that a lot of young guys are starting to grab their eyes. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing because, look, I know people are excited about this team this year, and you should be. This year, though, you're still building for the future. I don't want to cancel anyone's plans for a national championship. It's not happening this year. It's not. SEC title, it's not. Going to Georgia, no. And I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. but you need to be able to build. You need to be able to build. And I like what they're doing right now. They're bringing in guys that just get it. They're bringing in guys like the Dante Renos. They're bringing in the guys, I know he hopped on a little while ago, Pup Howard. They're bringing guys that just get it. And they're bought in to the point where they're essentially extra coaches right now recruiting. So I like what we're seeing from the young guys, though. They're coming in. They're competing early. I really do like that. Cam asked on Facebook, does Harbor play tight end or edge at the next level? That's a great question. It's a great question because he's so good at both. It feels like it's trending towards tight end in just the broader picture, and that's not specifically speaking about South Carolina. If South Carolina feels like he would be a better fit for DN, then I could certainly see that. But he's just the guy that, with his speed, with his strength, with his knowledge, really smart person. I learned today from my colleague Chris Clark. His father works in NASA. How about that? I believe his mother works in the healthcare industry. Two smart people. Comes from a very smart family. It's not a surprise that he has a high football IQ because he just sees things that other people do. They just don't view it the same exact way, whether it be where a defender might be a step or two before the play happens. And that just comes from just being a smart kid, studying up, understanding the game, and of course, just being just a freakish athlete. So if you had to ask me today, I'd say tight end because as we've seen, you could go, we'll use the example Gronk, right? Not the exact same body makeup, but if you have a guy like that, you can do a lot on offense. You could do a lot. You can put him at tight end. You can attach him to the line. You can detach him. You can put him in the slot. You can put him on the outside. That's just a nightmare from a matchup standpoint. Now, on the flip side is a defensive end, and I feel like a defensive end is one of the most important positions on the field. Linebacker is important. Safety, it's important. But you can have the best defensive backs in the world. If you have no pressure, it's going to mean absolutely nothing. You need to be able to put good pressure on. So if he was a defensive end, would I lose sleep about that if I was a Gamecock fan? No. I think if anything, that would excite me about the defense. That would excite me knowing that you have a guy out there who hopefully is going to be able to do what Spencer Rattler is going to do from an offensive standpoint, which is act like makeup, be able to cover up some of the blemishes you have if you were to play defensive end. Again, guys, if you are on Twitter Space tonight, doing things a little bit differently than how we will do this moving forward, trying to go through comments, apologize to people that I haven't been able to get to your comments yet. But moving forward, we will switch on over, allow you guys to call into this new show that we're going to be doing every Tuesday night. GC Live Talking Tuesday nights. We'll also be doing a post-game show that will begin this Saturday following the Georgia State game. We want to be able to hear from you guys. That's what it's about. I can go on and talk. We want to hear from you. So if you're on Twitter Space tonight, you have a question, come on, ask something. You want to say something, just a comment. You want to see the lights, whatever the heck it may be. Let us know. And, for the people that are on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you're watching, I'm going to continue to try to pop up as many of these questions as I can and just some of the stuff that you guys are saying. I know there's a lot of people that are excited about Harbor. Last week on the podcast that I do with Marcus Lattimore, Marcus gave just awesome insight as to what Harbor would experience as a 5-star commitment. And obviously Marcus, local guy, right? Local guy coming in from Duncan. Everyone knew who Marcus was, but it'll be the same deal, he said. And he said it's just different. The coaching staff, they're going to recruit you hard. Recruiting director, they're going to recruit you hard. It's just different when a 5-star is there. And again, as I mentioned earlier, there's only 31 5-stars in this year's class of 2023 that we have on 3. So they don't come often. To have a guy like him, though, I mean, shoot, he is just a freakish athlete. No question about that. Yeah, and that's a good point. Look, the commitments are great right now. And I'm not taking anything away from this coaching staff. I'm not taking anything away from the players. Because as we've seen with a guy, with guys on social media, right? Whether it be, Jaheim Bell, whether it be a Dante Reno, these guys are doing a tremendous job. We're going to have to wait and see, though, if these players that have verbally committed, if they'll stick it out. I'm not trying to scare anyone. I think you will. I think you will see a lot of these guys do that. Let's see. Continuing to scroll on down. Caleb says, I feel like Nicholas Harbor is a lock for us with all the ties to the 2023 class. As in the area, that would be huge. That's something. I'm glad you brought that up, Caleb. The ties to that area. The DMV, and this isn't to knock, Muschamp. It's over with. He's not here anymore. That was an area until the end of the Muschamp era when you guys, when you guys got like, Marshawn Lloyd coming in. For whatever reason, that was an area that was just tough. That was a tough area for South Carolina from a recruiting standpoint. For whatever reason, it started to pick up towards the end of the Muschamp era. And Beamer has done just an outstanding job this year. 3 guys from the DMV have already committed to South Carolina. 3. I'm not saying it's by design directly to get Nick Harbor, but it's by design in terms of trying to be able to create that pipeline. He understands there's talent up there. He understands there's talent in South Carolina in the South. There's some dudes from the DMV. And if you're able to go up there and you're able to get players from the DMV, that speaks volumes. That speaks volumes of what you're trying to do down here. So we've seen the pipeline that South Carolina has created in Florida already this offseason. We've seen the pipeline now taking place up in the DMV. We've even seen South Carolina do something that, you have to go back, I'd say probably over a decade, going into the state of Ohio to get a recruit. That even something like that stands out to me. Because what could that lead to in the next couple of years? You have a player there. All it takes is one. And then that second one comes. And if you're just able to create that pipeline and you're able to steal players from the backyard of Ohio State, or in this case, right, the DMV, Maryland, Virginia Tech, even Penn State not being too far. If you're able to do that, now you're cooking with something. Seeing some of these questions very similar to what was asked about Harbor. So apologize, guys, just hopping over some of this stuff. Let's see, Cade, Mike, what do you think will happen? Will 2024 end up being our first ever top 10 class? At this rate, I'd say yes, but there's a big if and a big what. What happens this year? If South Carolina is able to make progress from a win-loss standpoint, if South Carolina is able to get 7 wins this year in the regular season, at least, you're heading in that right direction. You cannot afford to take a step back this year. You cannot afford to miss out on a bowl game this year. For all the hooting and hollering that's been going, you need to make it to a bowl game. And not just make it to a bowl game, but be able to finish with more wins. Steven?
Oh, yeah, man. I was about to say, I think somebody else asked it, but do we expect to see much CBS this week, or is he probably out until Arkansas as far as carries this week?
I feel like we won't. I mean, I feel like we won't truly know until game time. But I feel like going into, and Beamer will never come out and publicly say this, and I wouldn't expect anyone on the coaching staff to say this. But you should be able to win this game this week. And the last thing you want to try to do is put a player out there like that of his caliber, and he re-aggravates it. Not the exact same situation, but you think back to Luke Doty's situation last year. So you don't want to get into a situation like that. So even if he suits up, I'd be shocked if we really see much of him. I really would. Just because big picture wise doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. You got Marshawn. I know he's a little nicked up right now. You got Juju. You got other guys back out there. Shad Amos, I'm excited to see him. Did some good things during the spring ball game. I don't expect to see CBS that much this weekend, if at all. But then again, hopefully you don't need them. You don't need them. You can be good for the Arkansas game. AJ?
Yeah, what's the deal with Corey Rucker?
So the situation with Corey right now is he's banged up right now with that foot. And we're going to have to wait and see how long he is out for. I don't really want to say too much more than that because put it this way. There'll be more information that will be coming out over the next couple of days, I feel like, that will at least paint a better picture to answer that question. It's just one of those things when it comes to a player, doesn't matter who it is, how quickly can they heal? That's what it comes down to. So I'd say if it's not over the next couple of days, I'd say maybe the next week we'll have just a better idea. So, I'm going to hold off on that just because there is going to be more information very soon. So I could say one thing, doesn't mean anything right now. But we'll get more clarity over the next couple of days. So sorry to dance around that, but be patient. That's all I can say. Be patient. There'll be some answers that will come out to that question. And looking at some of these questions here again, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, as well as Twitter Space tonight, wherever you guys are listening or watching tonight, we appreciate you tuning in to the inaugural GC Live Talking Tuesday nights, something we will do every Tuesday night at 7. And we'll also do a post-game show for GC starting this Saturday, Georgia State game. Just seeing some of this, I would honestly say that Kentucky's a bigger game. And this is going back to an earlier question, a bigger game than Arkansas. Yeah, that's a game. Look, if you want to be able to talk about being able to compete for the East, Georgia right now, they're ahead of you. They're ahead of you. That's just the reality. It's okay to say they're ahead of you. But at the same time, too, the gap that you're trying to close the gap with the other teams to be able to get to that point. So a team like Kentucky's in front of you or has been in front of you. They've just been that monkey on your back. For whatever reason, that's just been the team that's just been a thorn in South Carolina's backside. That gap is closing. That gap is closing to the point where you are seeing comments by Mark Stoops. And whether it's being directed or not direct, he knows what's going on. He knows what's going on. You need to be able to win. You need to be able to win on the road there at that. I don't care that it's on the road. I don't. You need to be able to take care of Kentucky. And if you're able to do that, you talk about being able to build for the future. You talk about being able to back up that hype in the buzz and everything else that's transpired around this program for the last 9 months. If you're able to do that, you're really, really going to be able to put a lot of people on notice that South Carolina, it's not just this, this hype machine. They're backing it up. And I feel like, this is my 7th year covering the Gamecocks. In my 7 seasons or 6 seasons, at least going on 7, is maybe in just 1 year that USC was able to back it up. And that, of course, was the Outback Bowl season. They need to be able to take care of Kentucky. And it's not just a this year thing. It's a consistent thing. And when you're able to do that, the recruits will come. And that's when you'll notice the climb in the SEC East as far as rankings go. Try to get some water in me. Darnell, he asks, there is a dark horse team every year. Can it be us? I'm not saying that South Carolina can't be a dark horse team. I just don't know if this is the year. It all depends. It all depends where you have that, right? Where's your bar set for the dark horse? Is it to win the SEC East? Is it to be able to finish second in the SEC East? I think they certainly can throw a wrench into things. If they beat Arkansas week 2, now you have Georgia at home. Most likely, at least in my opinion. Most likely that would be the college game day game of the week. And Georgia historically, or at least it seems like the last couple of years, and Marcus brought this up too, even going back to the days when they used to play Georgia. For whatever reason, Georgia they struggle. It just feels like they struggle. Come out slow in a lot of those noon games. I don't know if this is the year South Carolina beats Georgia. I'm not saying that. But if you beat Arkansas, that changes some things. The perception of South Carolina changes at that point. Because I do feel like there will be growing pains. There will be growing pains, especially with the offense. But I feel like as the year goes on, that offense is going to be clicking. That's why I feel like they will finish third in the SEC East, but still beat Tennessee, who I have finishing right above South Carolina, just because I think it's going to be tough at the beginning of the year for them until they get everything together. So, again, Twitter space, if anyone has any questions, raise your hand. I can sip some water here. As we continue to go through this inaugural show, GC Live, Talking Tuesday nights. And again, if you're just hopping on, we will, as I see Connor makes a request to speak, we will have a call-in feature. So we're not going to have to worry about doing this, holding 8 different things at once here. But we wanted to do this tonight because we wanted to be able to tell as many people possible that we're doing this show. And we definitely want to be able to get that word out that Gamecock Central is kicking things up a notch. But now we're going to turn things over to Connor. Connor, what's going on? Connor.
Oh, hey, is it working now?
It's working, buddy.
How y'all doing?
Good, man. How you doing?
Good. So, this new NIL thing that came out today, what all is it about?
Yeah, so we talked about it a little bit at the beginning, but if you're just joining us now, I mean the big takeaway with that is that not only is South Carolina the first, which is always a good thing to be able to say that, the first to be able to do something, the first major college program with an in-house NIL firm, and it's Park Ave, but there's exclusive rights that are tied into it, especially for the first couple of years. And the thing that really stood out to me about all this is the fact that USC not only made this happen, guys like Chance Miller and Ray Tanner, the fact that they not only made this happen, but they're protecting themselves. They're literally putting a fence up in the state where it's not going to allow in-state schools to be able to do partnerships with this firm for the first year. And then after that, after the first year, once that expires, Clemson won't be able to do that. And then the following year, SEC schools won't be able to do that. So for those first couple of years, it really makes something that no one else will be able to have, at least with this firm. Now, as we all know, what will this ultimately do? I think what you'll see kind of a copycat, right? You'll see people try to do something like this. They'll mimic it. I mean, that's just the inevitable. But I think the way South Carolina went about this, number one, it shows me that they're adjusting with the times. They're serious about competing, not just for football, but for basketball, women's basketball, baseball as well. You name it. They're serious. They're a contender. And I think, look, I get it. I get there's frustration from some of the fans. When it comes to the administration at times, I understand that. But I think in a case like this, again, Ray Tanner, Chance Miller, just everyone that made this happen, the fact that they did this, but they did it so wisely that it kind of puts Clemson's hands behind their back right now. Clemson's going to have to try to find a way to be able to get around that. So give credit. Give credit when it's due.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Is this good? Is the new NIL deal or this stuff going on? Do you think it will increase the recruiting process and make South Carolina more likely to dominate recruiting across the Southeast?
I think what it does is it helps families. I mean, it helps recruits certainly, but it helps families, and that's what it comes down to. It comes down to being able to make mommy and daddy happy, especially mommy and some of the grandparents. Letting them know, hey, look, those questions you have about NIL, because it's a question that a lot of these recruits, especially the 3, the 4, the 5 stars, they're asking these coaches. So I think being able to have a firm that can answer those questions a little bit better, as well as some of those things that coaches might not be able to get into a little bit more, it's going to allow them to be able to really, really take advantage of something right now that, again, major program, no one else is doing that. No one else is doing that. South Carolina is at the forefront. I felt like even before this happened that this was going to be a trend in some shape, way, or form. I wasn't saying that they were going to put basically a fence up and keep Clemson out or all the other in-state schools out from this firm for the first year or so. But the point being is they did that and they took it to another level. So certainly, it will certainly help. I think you're going to see it just like with op buildings, you see locker rooms, you see whatever the case may be, jerseys. You're going to see other schools try to mimic it in some shape, way, or form. But I think in the short haul right now, other teams are going to have to play catch up. Other universities, not just football teams, other universities are going to have to play catch up. So that is what I would say to that. Jared asked a question about Landon Sampson. Had Landon flashed anything in camp? Is he going to have an impact this year? I think the thing about Landon is coming in a little bit late, finishing up, his high school education this past spring. I want to say he's behind the 8 ball. He's still young. He's still a young guy. I think the beauty is right now is for the first time in a long time, South Carolina has depth at wide receiver. I don't know when the last time you've been able to really say that, especially over the last 2 years. They've had studs. We've seen the talent that's come out of that wide receiver room, right? But it seems like it's kind of like been like, okay, this is Deebo Samuel's year. This is Brian Edwards' year. This is Shi Smith's year. So even last year, seeing what Josh Vann was able to do. I don't think Landon's going to have to necessarily be that guy that has to go out there and be that quote-unquote guy. And that's a good thing. If anything, I think that takes the pressure off him. I'm not saying that he's, picking the foot off the pedal and he's just taking it easy. No. What I'm saying is it's going to allow him to really come into his own and be comfortable. And that's what happens. Hate to make the comparison because I know Gamecock fans don't like when I make comparisons to Clemson, but that's something that Clemson's been able to do. They've had so many talented wide receivers. They come in, young guy, what happens? You wait your turn. You earn your stripes. He's going to earn it. He's talented, but that's a good thing. And I think what's going to happen is with Landon, especially with the ability to appear in 4 games and still be able to keep your red shirt, South Carolina is going to have a decision to make with him. And it's a great decision because it'll allow him to still be able to go out there, but they might say, hey, look, why do we want to burn a year of eligibility for this guy? Why do we want to burn a year of eligibility? I'm not saying that's going to necessarily happen. Injuries, of course, happen too, but I think that's kind of where it's trending right now. And I think that's not a bad thing. It just speaks volumes of how far that wide receiver room has come. But to talk about Landon just in the short term, everything I've heard, nothing but good things. Nothing but good things. Making plays. Routes are getting sharper each week. And he is picking up the playbook. Because it can be overwhelming at times. You got to think about it. I mean, some of these guys, they had the opportunity to be out there in the spring. But he's developed a good rapport with not just Spencer Rattler, but with some of the other quarterbacks there as well. So one guy to keep in mind is Luke Doty, guy that I know everyone's excited about Rattler this year, and I get that. But don't forget about Doty. Don't forget about Doty. Not saying specifically about this year, but just down the road. So the fact that he's building a good relationship with him and rapport, that is a very, very good thing to hear. If anyone else has any questions, let me know on the Twitter space. Raise your hand. Again, next week, we will be adding a call-in function. So we're not going to do the whole Twitter space thing. We're doing that tonight because Gamecock Twitter spaces, you guys have done just an outstanding job. I mean, they've been fun. I've hopped into some of them. I really enjoy it, listening to some of you guys, but we want to make this a call-in show. We want to be able to hear from you guys. So if you guys have any questions, you let us know, and we will be able to let you get on. Cody, I have no idea how old you are, bud, but we're going to put you on. What's going on, Cody? Cody.
Yeah. How do you think the offensive line is going to be?
I think the offensive line is going to surprise a lot of people. I really do. I think, look, I can bring up the fact that, okay, you have all 5 starters back. The response I know that a lot of people are going to say is, all right, a lot of good that helped them last year. You know, it's great. We're going to have to see this again. What people need to keep in mind is this is the first time since the 2018-19 season when Brian McClendon was the offensive coordinator that South Carolina is retaining an OC. Think about that. Past 3 seasons, 3 different OCs before this year. Not just that, but they changed the blocking scheme. They went from a man blocking scheme to a zone blocking scheme. That might not sound like anything to a lot of people, but that's a difference. It's a difference, especially when you've been doing man for the majority of your career. Should be able to do both, yes, especially at this level. But it was a challenge. And, you know, as some of you guys know, with me covering the Patriots this fall up here in New England, that's something that they've been struggling with because a lot of colleges have been teaching man. It's a little bit easier. I mean, I'm not an offensive lineman. I know Big John Strickland was in here earlier, former Gamecock offensive lineman. He'd be able to speak better to it than I can. But I say all that because I feel good about where the offensive line should be this year. I really do. They've had a year under their belt with Marcus Satterfield. Marcus knows the strengths and weaknesses on all 5 guys, not just those 5 guys, but the backups behind them as well. He understands what he needed to do as a coach and as a person to be able to tweak things, to be able to not only get the execution that he's looking for, but to be able to reach them from a coaching standpoint. That's number 1. Number 2, these guys have something they didn't have last year. That's Spencer Rattler. Again, as I mentioned earlier, Rattler's going to act like makeup. He's going to act like makeup. And what the heck does that mean? Well, what happens with makeup? Cover some things up. He's going to be able to cover some of those blemishes up on this offense. And if South Carolina's offensive line can just be just a little better, just a little bit, I feel like it's going to look night and day. I really do. I feel like it's going to look night and day. One of the challenges South Carolina had, I can't even say the last 2 years, and this is a knock against Zeb or Luke, or I don't think teams were afraid of USC from a passing standpoint for the most part. And what happened in that Duke's Mayo Bowl? Teams paid the price, right? Florida, they put an extra guy in the box. What happened to them? They pay the price. I feel like you're going to see a difference this year. I feel like you're not going to see, maybe at the beginning of the year with Arkansas, even Georgia, because maybe Georgia doesn't respect South Carolina right now. I think you're going to see teams not have that extra safety in the box because I feel like they're going to respect the passing game this year. You're going to have to, not just for Rattler's sake, just the fact that you look at the talent they have at receiver and tight end. And what we're going to see on the flip side of that is USC is going to have a heck of a lot more space to work with, or you would assume, from a run game standpoint. So I do think this offense is going to be a hell of a lot better than it was a year ago. I also added this today in my predictions on Gamecock Central that I think USC is going to average over 30 points a game. That's only happened once since, I believe, 2014. Double check, make sure I'm saying that right. Either 14 or 15. So I bring that up just because it's something that USC has just struggled with. 2015, South Carolina has averaged 30 points or more just once, and that was 2018. So I think we will see an improvement, but in large part just because there's just so much more talent to work with, and this offense is going to feel more comfortable, I feel like, overall, just in this scheme. Trying to roll through some of these questions here on the side. Twisted Chicken, I'm not sold on Arkansas as much as others. They lost a lot with all their super seniors and Burks. look, I hear you, Twisted Chicken. I think if this game was later in the year, I'd feel different about it. I would. It's going to be Rattler's first SEC road test. It's going to be this offense's, some of the new guys on this team, even defense, right? Devontae Reed, whoever the heck it may be. Jordan Strawn, who I feel like is going to have a monster season. He'll be starting. He'll be his first SEC start, most likely. So I just think there's going to be challenges early on in this year. And I think USC is going to be able to overcome him. But right now, I can't see South Carolina beating Arkansas. And that's all right. I hope I'm wrong. Because if they're wrong, again, that now you're talking potentially seeing College Game Day come to Columbia the next week against Georgia, which would be just absolutely incredible. Trying to go through the list here. Let's see. I know that Preston and Langston were not happy with so many oars on the offensive depth chart instead of just starters being named. Look, we're all the same way. We all want to see the same thing, right? It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. Patriots do it. NFL teams do it. It's just the way it is. Can't really say much more about it other than that. Looks like we have Champ on the line here. We're going to get to you, Champ. What's going on, Champ?
Hey, Mike.
How you doing?
Hey, man. Hey, South Carolina looks like we're about 11 and a half to 12 and a half point favorite. You put any stock in that, or what do you feel about Warren?
I'm not gonna get into the game. I'm not gonna throw anything on it, but I feel like South Carolina will cover that. Do we see USC go down the field and score on their first drive? Maybe. But, I mean, I can already envision it right now. USC doesn't go down and score on their first drive, and everyone starts going nuts. I think the big thing is with this team because, again, and Beamer and this coaching staff, they're not going to come out and say it. You should win this game. This should be a win. And that's no disrespect against Sean Elliott or Georgia State, but this should be a win. You should be able to take care of business. Even though, as I've mentioned, there's going to be growing pains, specifically with this offense. I think what we'll see is a team that maybe Beamer has a play or two in there where he wants to get the crowd on their feet early. But I feel like for the most part, the game plan will be to keep this very vanilla. Because there's a lot of people like myself that aren't giving South Carolina much of a chance against Arkansas. So if you keep things vanilla, and some of the things that you have been working on that you're hoping not to show this week, you're going to be able to show them against Arkansas. And maybe you can be able to catch them off guard. It's an early game, even though it's in a hostile environment. Maybe you're able to catch them off guard a little bit. So I expect them to cover if they don't beat them by, 30, 40, whatever the case may be, whatever people are looking for. They want to see a blowout. Don't lose sleep on that. Don't lose sleep over that. Because, again, I think they're going to try to keep things as vanilla as possible because they want to be able to take care of Arkansas the next week. And then they got Georgia coming up the following week, of course. So it's only going to get trickier, but that's what you typically see. That and the fact that a lot of teams in week one, I say a lot because you're going to see situations like this week, right, with Notre Dame playing Ohio State, or even last year, Georgia playing Clemson, where teams are going to have to install more than they typically would. Right? Beamer mentioned today that he absolutely hates week one games. About 99% of the coaches would tell you that too, because you just don't know what you're going to see out there. You're in practice. You don't have preseason games. You don't have the ability to know what a kid's going to be like when he's under the lights. Yeah, you can go out there and have a scrimmage out there, Williams-Brice, and there's maybe a couple parents there. Again, the janitor, whatever, 50 people in there. It's not the same. So this is going to be a good opportunity for not just this team, but for the younger players in particular, even if South Carolina doesn't necessarily beat them by, a blowout, beating them by, 20, 30, 40 points, or wherever the case may be. So, short answer, yes, I expect them to be able to cover that, but I just don't know how crazy the game might get in terms of out of hand. I think South Carolina, the game will be in hand, but from a scoring standpoint, I have no idea how crazy it might get. Let's see. Big Red on here coming from YouTube. And again, I apologize for some of these people who sent some of these questions in. Big Red sent this in at 7:39, so I'm not sure if Big Red's listening anymore, but we appreciate you, Big Red. He asks, is there ever a thing as recruiting yourself into a corner where young guys leave because of lack of playing time? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the new era that we live in. And I say new era. That's not to say that this hasn't happened before, right? But the fact that you have the transfer portal, the fact that you have the ability, two things. You have the ability to play in 4 games and still be able to maintain your eligibility for that year. You don't lose a year of eligibility. I think that's dangerous more than anything else. Reason being is a player can go out there, do very well, and he might just say, screw it, I'm out of here. I'm gone. Bigger school might come knocking. Money man might come knocking. But on the flip side of that, you might have a player that goes out there, gets in towards the end, garbage time, but he's not happy that he's not getting as much playing time as he feels like he should. Now he has a little bit of tape. So, look, it's just the reality of college football right now, not just college football, college sports. At the end of the day, you have to make it clear. You have to make it clear to the players that competition is a core value, right? And now I feel like I'm sounding like Shane Beamer because that's exactly what he echoes, it seems like, every week. But it's the truth. Players need to understand that it's going to come down to competition. And not just that, but even if you're doing well, there's this thing called the transfer portal now. And they're always going to be checking it. You know, look at a guy like Luke Doty, right? Starter last year, assumed starter, right? Gets hurt, comes back, re-injures his foot, and then comes back this year. And what happens? Spencer Rattler comes on in. Doty could pout. Doty could have said, screw it, head into the transfer portal, but that's not who he is. He wants to compete. And regardless of how things play out this year with him, he's sitting in. We expect Rattler to be a one and done. I think a lot of us do. He's sitting pretty to be the starting quarterback next year. So I think, there's something to be said about guys that do stick it out. And I'm using Doty and, in a hypothetical. We don't even know how things are going to play out with that in terms of this season. But I think it's just one of those things that you just have to be prepared for as a coach. I mean, I talk to different coaches all the time about this, not just at South Carolina, but other schools, whether it be Power 5, whether it be FCS, the challenges that the transfer portal have created now for them, because you have to constantly be prepared for a player to take off. I mean, look at a guy like Juice Wells, right? He just dominated the FCS level to the point where he decided, hey, I want to go play in the SEC. That's going to happen. So it's not even about guys necessarily being upset that they're not playing. Guys that play extremely well, they might want to take a jump. I don't see that necessarily being the case at South Carolina, right? You're in the SEC. What's going to happen? Guys are going to say, oh, I want to go play for Alabama or Georgia. I'm never going to say never, but I don't think that's necessarily going to be a trend. I think you'll see more FCS guys jump up to SEC schools. But yeah, I mean, it's just the reality of it. And you just have to make it clear to these players that they know, hey, look, we're going to play the best. I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you're a guy that's been here for 2 years, 3 years, or if you're a first-year guy coming from the transfer portal. And you just got to make it clear to them. We saw that last year. I know I bring this up because of my connection with him from a college standpoint, but a guy like Carlos Patel comes in from a Division II school, starts the last 6-7 games at nickel. I mean, these things will happen when you come in and you want to be able to put a team on the field that competes at a high level in the SEC, and that's what Beamer's doing right now. If anyone has any more questions on Twitter Space, let me know. I'm trying to go through some of these comments that you guys have asked, whether it be on Twitter, whether it be on YouTube, whether it be on Facebook. We appreciate everyone that has tuned in tonight. Again, this is the new Tuesday night show. We'll be kicking things off. I have 7 right now. We're going to try to keep that at 7 every week. And And then as well as after the game on Saturdays, a little post-game show. Colin, we're going to have a new function that will debut this weekend, but we'll also be able to have that function available on Tuesday night, so you guys can ask questions and just comments, right? We're calling this Talking Tuesday because, well, Shane Beamer and the players spoke today. So if there's anything in particular that stood out to you about some of the things they said, let us know. Let us know. We got into that a little bit earlier about Antoine Wells Jr. just coming across very confident heading into this game. And as I mentioned before, that tells me two things. One, the kid's excited. This is why he came to the SEC, number one. But number two, I think that also makes me at least believe that South Carolina is going to use him a lot, or that's the plan at least going into it. That has him that excited that he wants to go out there and talk like that. And I didn't think it was anything crazy. He's just excited. He's just excited. I'm not trying to overblow it. But yeah, so going through some of this stuff. Let's see. Tony wants to know from YouTube. Tony asking, any word on Amos getting any touches at tailback? I think we see him this week. I really do. Because again, I don't think we're going to see Christian Beal-Smith, if at all, maybe a little bit. But if you're Beamer, if you're this coaching staff, you're hoping you don't even need to use him because you want to go out there. You expect to be able to beat Georgia State. Hopefully you don't have to use him at all. So the fact that, okay, let's just say CBS doesn't play at all or he's limited, put him to the side. Marshawn Lloyd, from everything that we've heard, he's feeling back to himself. Again, though, if you even just have a little slither in the back of your head as a coach saying, hey, look, we want to just be smart with him, with his foot, that's going to take some touches away from him. So what happens next? Well, you'll see Juju. You'll see a guy like Amos get out there. So I think that's one thing that I would keep in mind when thinking about that. And Rashad had a phenomenal spring game. He really did. I mean, you think of the three-headed monster, right, with CBS, Marshawn Lloyd, and then Juju. But he had a really, really talented game in that spring game. So I'd love to be able to see him get some touches out there. I think it just adds more depth to that running back room. And as we've seen just this preseason, you need depth. You need depth, and not just the running back room. You need depth at every position. Look at last year, what happened with quarterback. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. Trying to read some of these comments here that we have, and I apologize that I'm just getting to some of this. This is from Chris from 743. Can players recruit talent even when coaches can't? I've seen our coaches doing that on social media. So here's the thing. Coaches can't tweet directly at a player. That's why you've seen some of the things with Shane Beamer. But the difference now is you can retweet. You can you can share some of the other stuff from people. So that's what you're seeing, Chris. It's a huge help. It's a huge advantage when you have players going out there recruiting other players, because you're going to have dead periods. You're going to have situations where, and we go back a little bit. The NCAA changed the rules within the last couple of years, which allows coaches to be able to do that, being able to retweet and all that. They weren't able to retweet recruits. So it's just little things like that. I'm glad the NCAA did that, especially when we're talking about the world of NIL. Gives players more exposure. Not everyone's a Nicholas Harbor, but, some of these other guys out there, whether it be Big Tree. I mean, you think about Dante Reno, even the class of 2024 commit. These guys are able to get extra exposure because of that. Where will you be watching the game Saturday night? I'll just say this. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. I won't say anything right now. I think KC also asking, will you be making it down for a game? Stay tuned. Stay tuned to social media over the next couple days. That's all I'll say about that. Cam asks, let's see. He'll have to keep his weight down if he wants to run. So we're talking going back with Nicholas Harbor, trying to figure out what position he'd be great in. Again, Nick asking, is Beal-Smith a true backup if 100% healthy? Again, I don't think if CBS is even, I'm just making this up, like 80%, 70%. It just comes down to, does it make sense? Does it make sense? That's why I don't want to say we're not going to see him altogether, but I don't think you're going to have to see him as much. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. It's going to allow some of these younger guys to be able to get out there as well. You making it down for a game this year? And are we finally beating Kentucky this year? KC, we'll see. Stay tuned to that first part of your question. Your second one, though, are we finally beating Kentucky this year? I have them. I have South Carolina going to Kentucky, being able to beat the Wildcats. I think what it's going to come down to more than anything is what South Carolina is able to do in those games against, and I know people are going to roll their eyes and like, what are you talking about? Charlotte and South Carolina State, because I have them right now losing to Arkansas and Georgia and starting the year off 1-2, but still being able to finish the year off 8-4. So I say that because I feel like this team is going to get better as the year gets going. And even though Georgia isn't necessarily the back half of the schedule, you're going to have some tests early on with Arkansas and Georgia. How do they respond to Charlotte? How do they respond to SC State? And it's not necessarily being able to just go out there and putting up 40, 50, whatever, how many points. It's the body language. How do they respond in these press conferences? Just these little things that maybe, some people would say you're looking too deep into. Maybe. But at the same time, too, I think it's really telling. Everyone's been telling this team how great they are. How great they are. Well, a lot of that has to do with last year. If things don't go well to start the year, and I'm not trying to talk, speak things into existence, be a Debbie Downer, but let's just call a spade here. That's a tough schedule at the beginning of the year. There's going to be growing pains with this offense, you would assume. If they're able to overcome that early on in the year, I think they're going to have a great opportunity to be able to go into Lexington and beat Kentucky. And if you're able to beat Kentucky this year, and you're able to have 7 wins at least in the regular season, if not 8 or more, the message that sends, not just to Kentucky, not just to the SEC East, not just to the state of South Carolina with Clemson in it, or the SEC as a whole, the message you're sending to recruits out there, it's that it's not just, show ponies and unicorns, that you're backing it up, and there's something special being built in Columbia. So I think that's the big thing with that Kentucky game this year. Going through this, I think that Lloyd, Juju, and Amos can carry the mail. I feel like we will see Amos out there. I feel like we will. And I probably have said his name like 8 different ways here tonight. Going down, how is Tonka Hemingway doing? He's doing well. I feel like we'll see Tonka get some good opportunities this weekend against Georgia State. He's a guy that, when you just think back to his recruiting process, there was a lot of hype around him. And I feel like we'll start to see him take that next step this year. I think he's gonna be a guy to keep an eye on this weekend. I think he's gonna be a lot of fun to watch. Again, guys, if you're hopping on, we're gonna wrap this up probably in a little bit. We could keep going all night long. But if you have any questions, we're doing this on Twitter Space tonight, because next week we will have that call-in system set up for you guys, so you guys can call in, whether you want to talk directly, kind of like radio style, whether you want to leave a message, we'll just play it on air, whatever you want to do, or you can watch it on Facebook, you can watch it on YouTube, or you can also listen on Twitter. You don't have to necessarily go into the Twitter space, and you can comment directly, and we will be able to answer your questions. Chris asks, will there be a time where South Carolina recruits nationwide for top-ranked players? Again, I feel like it just comes down to being able to get the wins. You have to be able to get the wins. Now, a guy like Nicholas Harbor, if you've been reading our reports over on Gamecock Central, and Chris Clark did a phenomenal job, drove up to D.C., was able to meet with him, got really good stuff. They're able to land a guy like that. Certainly it can shake things up a little bit more, but ultimately it's going to come down to winning. That's how you not only get a commitment from a guy like Nicholas Harbor, but you keep a guy like Nicholas Harbor. You keep some of these high 4-star recruits. South Carolina doesn't have a good year this year. They don't make a bowl game, right? They don't do that. It's all smoke and mirror now. It's all smoke and mirror. You need to be able to get wins if you want to be able to recruit at such a high level. I see AJ's raising his hand. AJ, we'll go to you. I know there's some more people on here, but on the comment section, but I'll turn the mic over to you, bud.
Speaking of Nicholas Harbor, I seen John Whittle just put a crystal ball in for him. What's your take on that?
I haven't had a chance to see it, but I can tell you that from everything that we, and not me personally, but the Gamecock Central and the On3 team have been reporting over the last couple of days, is that USC's opportunity, potential, whatever way you want to word it, it's looking better to land him. Ultimately, again, he needs to have a great official visit. He needs to have a great official visit. And I know some people have been upset. Why hasn't he been on campus yet? Well, he's a hell of a track star. So he's been real busy. But he's going to finally come on campus for that Georgia game. And I remember asking Marcus about this, Lattimore, on our podcast, if it matters if South Carolina wins that game, because 90% of the time I look at a game like that and I'm like, the players don't care if, who wins. They want to be able to go out there. It's the environment, everything around them. He agreed with that, but it can't hurt. Doesn't hurt, especially knowing who Georgia is, defending national champs. The fact that they're your border state rival, and outside of Clemson, probably one of your more hated rivals, if not the hated rival outside of Clemson. So the atmosphere is going to be electric. And if South Carolina is able to stay in that game and be competitive, it's going to make the environment even that much better from start to finish. So I'm not saying South Carolina is going to get blown out against Georgia, but the point being is it can only help the longer that South Carolina is in the game. And God forbid they beat Georgia. Holy cow. I think 5 points might not exist the next day, especially if they start the year off 3-0. So South Carolina is in a good spot right now, but ultimately it's going to come down to being able to be consistent with how they go about the recruiting process with him. And then again, the things that matter the most, being able to get wins, and certainly being able to take care of a team like Georgia would help that. Frederick on YouTube asking, again, apologize for some of these people that I'm answering their questions to. This one's from 40 minutes ago. Sorry, Frederick. Mike, you did the electric slide around that question. No, that was the, I'm assuming that was the Corey Rucker question. And if people are curious about Corey Rucker, what I'll say about this is, give it time over the next couple of days, if not the next week. We should hear just some more clarity about things with Corey. What I would say about that too is, every player is different when it comes to injuries and how they recover in terms of time and whatnot. So give it some time though. But you'll hear more about it. I know people are interested on that, but just, stay optimistic. That's all I can really say right now. Matthew Bentley, who was the first freshman to hit the field this year? Ooh, that's a good question. I really like Stone Blanton. I really do. Because I feel like he can make an impact on special teams. Now, I say all this, I don't know what the special teams depth chart is looking like, but I did have a chance to speak with Pete Lembo back on August 4th at Media Day at South Carolina. And he was specifically a player I brought up, but we, talked about freshmen in general and underclassmen as to how what's the thought process that goes into that when you have a guy who, again, we were talking hypothetically about Stone Bland, but this could be for anyone that can make an impact on special teams. But at the same time, too, you realize that you don't want if you feel like they're not necessarily going to be able to get on the field from a defensive or an offensive standpoint, how you go about that, right? Do you want to burn someone's red shirt because they're playing on special teams? What I can tell you is, and again, I'm using Stone Blanton, for example, but this could be for any freshman or any underclassman for that matter. Because Pete is the special teams coordinator, he talks with, all these players for the most part, but he talks with the other coaches to have an idea of where they're being used. Are they going to be used on offense a lot? Are they going to be used on defense a lot? And of course, you have that ability to play these guys in at least 4 games without burning your red shirt because of the NCAA rule that was instated a couple of years ago. But at the same time, too, you have to make a decision. So for a guy like Stone, could we see him go out there early on in the year and play some special teams, see some defense out there? Certainly, just like any underclassman. But at the same time, what you'll see sometimes too from talking to a guy like Lumbo and some of these other coaches, sometimes they want to be able to at least have a game in their back pocket for these underclassmen at the end of the year in the bowl game, because they feel like that time period between the end of the year with Clemson when they play that game that last week in near Thanksgiving and whenever that bowl game is, the growth period can be tremendous for an underclassman, especially a freshman. So I think that's a guy that really stands out to me. The kid from Irmo, of course, he's a special player. He's a very special player. I'm very excited to see what he can do this year. They have some talent. But I think it also, again, we're seeing some of these underclassmen, some of these freshmen making the too deep, which, as Beamer said today, said not to read too deep into that. But at the same time, too, they have some talented guys. They've been able to build some depth up. So, you hope that you don't necessarily have to turn to a freshman. Like Nick, like I mentioned, the kid from Irmo or DQ Smith. They have some talented guys. I'm excited to see who that first freshman will be out there. If it's not necessarily special teams, you want to see offense, defense, if that's more so answering your questions. Kind of keep trying to go to the water here. Again, if anyone has any questions on Twitter Space, let me know. Give me a chance to be able to breathe here a little bit as I go through your questions here. Trying to answer some of them on the Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter comment section. But again, after this week, we will be switching things over. We're going to do it for the game. Fingers crossed, I say that. Hopefully everything will go well so you guys can call in directly to the show. That will be the GC Live post-game show. We don't have a name yet for that, but that's essentially what it will be. But Tuesday nights, GC Live, Talking Tuesday nights. And this is part of our expansion with GC and some of the shows that we're going to be doing. So this is not going to replace GC Live with Chris and Wes. If you guys enjoy that, Kendall, I know, hops on, does a tremendous job as well. It's not replacing it. We're just expanding, making more shows. So that is what this is all about. Let's see here. Going through some of these comments here. Again, some of these questions I know were from a while ago. Apologize for just getting to you now. Is there any chance at all that Rattler returns next year? I don't see it. I don't. The only way that I can see that happening is if Rattler just doesn't have a good year. He just doesn't have a good year. But now the question is, okay, if he doesn't have a good year, why is that the case? Is it on Rattler? Is it the offensive coordinator? And if it's the offensive coordinator and the offensive coordinator is gone, what could that mean? Because one of the reasons why, or one of the things that was appealing to Rattler, was the offensive style that Satterfield runs. So I really don't see it. I'd say maybe like less than 10% chance I could see Rattler return next season. I can't see it. Let's see. Big Red again. Should we advise players to graduate early so they can play immediately? I'm going to read that one more time. Should we advise players to graduate early so that we can play, I'm guessing, the younger guys quicker? No, because I think what you want to do than anything is be able to develop players, and you hope they stick around 4 years, because then you've been able to really put your handprints on them, right? And they're able to have an idea as to what you're asking them to do, and they have a better idea of what's going on. So that's what I would say to that. One thing I do need to make sure I do, so I don't get yelled at here, is we got to make sure we're paying the bills around here at Gamecock Central. Today's show, just like all GC Live shows, are presented by Clint Hammond. Want to be able to reach out to him. He'll be able to take care of you in this crazy time right now with trying to find places. Clint is your guy, so be sure to hit him up. There's the number right there. He's done a tremendous job for us over at Gamecock Central, so be sure to check out Clint. And then in addition to that, I want to make sure we're giving Clint the full screen right there. In addition to that, today's show, as always with GC Live, is brought to you by Liberty Tax. So get on over there. I know tax season, we're a little bit away from that, but at the same time, too, it's never too early to go check those guys out. We're going to probably wrap this up in just a little bit. If anyone on, I see Swift, I know we tried to go to you earlier. Let's see if Swift is finally there. Swift, are you there now?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, Swift. How you doing?
What's up? So I heard a question. Why would Rattler come back? I'm a little confused on that as well. I don't know. The only way Rattler would even come back is if we had a bad season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to me, Nick, Swift, excuse me. I saw Nick in front of me pop up. If that were to happen, the question is, okay, is that because of Rattler, or is that just because of the play con? Did he feel like he's not in sync with the offensive coordinator? If that's the case, Satterfield might not even be here next season, if that's the case. And if that happens, would Rattler say, you know what, I'd rather say, screw it, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. I just can't see it happening. I just feel like, I don't want to say South Carolina's cornered themselves or put themselves in a corner, but I can't see it happening. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, Swift, but yeah, well, bottom line is this. Hopefully it doesn't come to that point. T. Thompson mentioning Nick from Irmo is second on the safety depth chart as well. Yep, absolutely. That's good to see the local guys making an impact too. Two talented guys, two guys that, if you talk with their high school coaches, they speak the world of. Will we have a pronunciation, guys, of the players' names? They should have it on South Carolina's website. At least that's what I'm hoping for, as they typically do. So that should be on their website, Big Red. I'm going up from the bottom up now. Could also see South Carolina winning the first 5 games. Yeah, and then you said I could see South Carolina losing the first 5 games. Look, that's the unknown part of this. We don't have preseason games for college football. We have no idea what this team's going to look like. We don't. Yeah, there's a lot of buzz. Spencer Rattler's here. It's great. What does that look like out there? What does that look like with 10 other guys around him? Throw an offensive line out there, some receivers, now you got the defense out there. What does that look like? Will this offensive line, as I mentioned before, be able to take that next step this year? Are they going to be able to bounce back? Which I believe they will. After having a year to be able to work with Marcus Satterfield, I feel like they will be. I feel like they will take that next step. I know some people were beating Georgia and Arkansas, says Xavier. Well, they would need to get, Arkansas. Okay. In my head, I don't know why I thought it was Alabama. I was like, all right, we're gonna go to the SEC championship already here. Look, if they beat Arkansas, again, I don't see it happening. But if they were able to beat Arkansas week 2, and I'm not saying it's impossible, I just think there's going to be so many hurdles early on in the year just because it's natural for that to happen. And it's a tough schedule. I don't know what everyone else's schedules look like for the first 3 weeks. That's a tough schedule, man. Georgia State, veteran team, well coached. A guy that knows exactly what his team is walking into, and a coach with Sean Elliott. That's not a layup. South Carolina should win that game, but it's not going to be this game where it's like, all right, South Carolina is going to put up 50, 60, 70 points. I just don't see that happening. Then you got to go to Arkansas. Hostile environment. 11 a.m. local time kickoff. And then, of course, Georgia at home. But, man, if they're able to beat Arkansas, That just makes that Georgia game just a little bit more interesting. It does. A 2-0 South Carolina team returning to Williams-Brice to play in what will probably feel like a toaster oven at noon, with Will Muschamp returning to the sideline to coach as a defensive coordinator. How many snaps we see Nick get on Saturday? I feel like we'll see. I feel like we will see him play this weekend. I really do. If you're seeing, again, Beamer mentioned this today, not to put a lot of stock into the depth chart, but I think the fact that we saw him on the first one, I think it speaks volumes of how they view him. And from everything that I've been told from people in that building and people close to the program, they're very, very impressed with him. Very impressed. He does not look like someone that is a freshman at times. Like the way he moves around, like he's not looking like a young guy. Let's see. Big Red. I thought the question about renaming him a Gamecock mascot was ridiculous. Well, that's kind of where we are. You know, we're just there. Pearson Fowler hopping on with us. Appreciate you, Pearson. Be able to check him out and the boys from GC. Preston Thorne each day over on 107.5 The Game. Again, for everyone that is just joining us, this is the new show that we'll be doing every Tuesday night. GC Live, talking Tuesday nights, and then starting this Saturday, the post-game show, GC Live post-game, which we don't quite have a name yet. But we'll also have a call-in function, so we're not going to have to double dip and do the Twitter space, but we're doing that tonight because we want to be able to get the word out that this is going on. But this is not replacing GC Live with Chris and Wes. They'll still be around, but we'll be just expanding some of the shows that we are doing. Trying to see some of these questions, trying to go back because I missed a good portion in the middle. If anyone has any more questions on Twitter space, raise your hand now, because if not, we'll probably wrap things up in just a little bit. But trying to go through some of the questions from people that have been submitting questions in from YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. We appreciate you guys taking the time to join us tonight. And for the people that I haven't been able to answer their questions, I apologize. In this one right here, Austin asked, did Doty get a medical red shirt last year? No, unfortunately, he did not. Just missed that cutoff, unfortunately. Let's see if Rattler returns. Let's see. I would have to think it was an unsuccessful year. Cam writes, yeah. Again, if Rattler's back next season, which I still just I can't wrap my head around that because I just can't see that happening. Because if that happens, then you got to ask yourself, okay, if that happens, one or two things happen. One, Rattler had a bad season. And if he had a bad season, is it because of him or is it because of the offensive coordinator? If it's because of the offensive coordinator, he's gone. He's gone. Rattler wanted to come here to play in that style of offense. If the OC's gone, does he want to come back the next year? I can't see it happening. I just can't. Going to turn things over. We got Gamecock swag.
Since you're the Boston guru, why'd they cut Kevin Harris, my friend?
I think they're hoping that he's going to clear waivers and they're going to try to bring him back in the 53-man roster. That running back room, even with Ty Montgomery getting injured the other night against the Raiders and then James White retiring before the start of preseason, it was a crowded running back room. It opened things up, though, for Harris to be able to get a little bit more touches. He did good things the other night against the Raiders, including a 33-yard run for his first carry of the game. Of course, the fumble happened at the end. But I think he's a guy that the Patriots from again, I don't have the same type of connections by any means with the Patriots yet as I do in South Carolina. But he, from the people that I have spoke with, they were very impressed with him. They're very impressed. They feel like having him have an opportunity to develop on practice squad would be very beneficial for him. Of course, he's still strengthening that back, coming back from that back injury from just a year ago. They liked him, though. They really did. And look, we'll see what happens because two things can happen. A player can, a team can fall in love with the player. Number one, does he clear waivers? That's the first thing we're going to have to wait and see. The second thing we're going to have to wait and see is how does the number game kind of work out in terms of what the Patriots are trying to do with their practice squad and what they ultimately believe will be that running back room from a 53-man roster standpoint. And do they feel like he's a guy that can eventually be in the mix, whether it be this year, if someone were to get hurt, or next season? So I don't want to say I was super surprised by it. I thought he had a possibility because he was doing good things as an up back on special teams. And that was one of the things that I was told. I just think, unfortunately, it just came down to numbers. And, if they feel like you can make an impact on special teams, that's one way to be able to make the 53-man roster. But at the same time, too, how much special teams are you doing? So, fortunately for Kevin, just didn't work out for right now. But, again, for a guy like him, not the exact same situation, but a guy like Nick Muse, I feel like Muse will be back on the practice squad with the Vikings. He did some good things, really good things with the Vikings. So this preseason, so we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, a little bummed to see that. A little bummed to see Justin Bethel, Blythewood native, getting cut by the Patriots today. Not surprised because the Patriots had a younger guy that they like on special teams, and Bethel was getting paid about $2 million, and they still have Matthew Slater, who's making about 2.6, who just basically just plays special teams. That's like it. So getting a little sidetracked, but just another South Carolina connection with Bethel, unfortunately getting cut today. Not sure if you have any other questions, Gamecock Swag, but appreciate you hopping on here tonight. Appreciate everyone hopping on here tonight. Going to go scroll through this one last time, see if there's any more questions. Joey, we appreciate it. This is such a great idea, Talking Tuesday. Big shout out to my boss, Brian Shoemaker, and the guys over at GC that I work with, Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark, Colin Taylor. This was one of the ideas that they had when I joined GC. And, the beauty of this is because of my situation that obviously was very unexpected, being up here covering the Patriots this fall. It worked out. It worked out that we can still do this remotely. So again, we will be adding the call-in function over the next couple of days. We're going to have that post-game show. We'll be able to do that, and we're very excited about that. Just going through some of these last-minute questions here, Joey. Do the Gamecocks back off if they get the 21-point lead and bring in Doty? I don't know if there's necessarily a point limit, right? I feel like it's more so quarters, right? We're to South Carolina. What are they doing after 2 quarters? What are they doing after the 3rd quarter? I think that's more realistic. I don't know where I'd put it. 28, maybe 21. I feel like if it's 21 in the 4th quarter, I feel like we'll see Doty for sure. I think it'd be good. I think it'd be good to see Doty out there because, look, if any team knows, South Carolina knows that you're only 1 play away, especially at that position. So to be able to have him go out there, I think would be beneficial for not just the team, but more importantly, just for the kid's confidence to be able to go out there and move around and be able to say, hey, look, I can do this. I can do this coming back from my injury, because it's that mental block that sometimes you're not preparing for. You're preparing for, all right, me going out there, I'm healthy. And every time you make a cut the first couple times until you take a couple hits, you're not thinking the same way. So I think that's one thing. Could we get some guests on the show as the season goes on? Heath Klein or Jay Phillips at 107.5? Absolutely. We will definitely have some guests. You're not just going to have to listen to me yap for an hour plus. I said we were going to keep this to an hour. Look at this. The inaugural show, we're almost at 2 hours right now. I don't think I'm going to have my voice tomorrow. I got to do a New England Revolution preseason game, pregame show. But yeah, we're definitely going to have some guests. We're going to have some former players on. We might have some recruits as well hop on these Tuesday nights. And then we'll mix in some things. We'll also have some GC personnel hopping on with us, whether that be Wes, Chris, Colin, intern Joe, Kendall, whatever. We'll have some other guys hopping on and girls as well. Jeremy, who runs on the field first play, Lloyd or McDowell? I'd say Marshawn. I think we'll see Marshawn out there. I think we'll see plenty of Juju, especially if CBS isn't able to go, or if CBS is just limited in general, I think we'll see plenty of Juju. But I'd give the nod to Marshawn. T, do you see Parker getting a gig with the pro team? I do, but I don't know when that opportunity will come. It might not even come this year. I mean, look at a guy like Elliott Fry, his situation, right? I mean, he's still getting phone calls from teams, and what he did with the Chiefs last year. So I think the big thing is that I'd love to see Parker do is just have an opportunity to put some game tape out there. I remember going back to the spring, and I haven't talked to Parker about this specifically lately. Maybe we'll have Parker hop on one of these shows on Tuesday nights, give him a call. But I remember him saying that he had fooled around with like punting, because a lot of these guys that are specialists in the NFL, they want you to either be able to punt or do kickoffs in addition to place kicking. Now, if you're a punter, what helps you is if you have the experience of being a placeholder, if you can hold the ball. I know it sounds silly, but that is something that can help you there. So with Parker, he said that he'd fooled around a little bit with punting just to be able to show teams that he can do that. So again, I don't know the specifics as to why teams are looking at Parker and what they're trying to see more of. But maybe we can have Parker hop on here. Hopefully not. And I say hopefully not because hopefully Parker's too busy to be able to hop on here. But I will keep you guys posted with that. Lady Bree, how did no one pick up Jalen Foster? I'm glad he's going to be around to help out. But really, I think some of these teams get caught up with the metrics too much, with the size. I really do. I think the game's changing so much that we've seen over the last couple of years. You don't necessarily need a linebacker that's 250 pounds. That's like 6'4", 6'5". Sometimes speed and just instincts can help out. But hate it for Jalen from an NFL standpoint, but from a Gamecock standpoint, huge pickup. Huge pickup to have him around the program still. Matthew Bentley, do you think that will retire? I'm guessing he was supposed to say, do you think we will retire Connor Shaw's jersey next? It's interesting. It's an interesting conversation. If you were to retire another jersey, who would it be? Who deserves to be retired? I mean, there's a lot of names. You can even go back in the day to guys like Rick Sanford, who was the very first Gamecock to be drafted in the first round, was an All-American at defensive back for the Gamecocks. A lot of talented players. It becomes a dicey area because the more players you retire, right, the jersey numbers, or jerseys, not the numbers, now you wonder where that mark is, where that benchmark is. And I've said this before, not the exact same, apples to apples, but you look at the bar that Asia Wilson set with basketball, right? All the national awards she won, and she won a national championship. To me, and Asia's even said this, I remember interviewing her on the court after the game in Minnesota. She even said it. I said, does Aaliyah Boston deserve a statue now when she graduates? And she said, yeah. So I say that because where's the bar, right? Where's the bar? For that, it seems a little easy to be able to measure. Thank you, T. But where's the bar for football? That's something that I'm interested in finding out. And that's something I hope to be able to report back to you guys, whether I have a chance to catch up with a guy like Chance Miller or whoever I need to talk with to be able to ask that question to, because I think that is something that I don't want to say fans necessarily deserve to know, but I mean, they should know. They should know. I think that'd be great if that transparency could be out there. But again, it gets dicey. The more jerseys you retire, it's like, where's that bar? Where's that bar? How high does it have to be? Because there's a lot of guys. You mentioned Connor. I mean, you can keep going down the list with some of these guys. Kate, I'm obviously excited to see Rattler, but Doty development is crucial considering Rattler will be a one and done. Yeah, we expect, again, I expect Rattler to be a one and done. I think a lot of us expect Rattler to be a one and done. Doty's big. Doty is critical to this team. It's good to see the development of Colton Gauthier. It's good to see the development of a guy like Brandon Davis and some of the younger quarterbacks they have. But Doty is the guy that you expect at this point, as of today. As of what? What's today's date? August 30th. Can't believe it's already going to be September. You expect him to be the starting quarterback next year because you expect Rattler to be a one and done. Doty needs to get some time on the field this year. You pray to God and knock on wood that it's not in necessarily a critical situation. That's not saying he can't handle it, but you hope Rattler stays healthy. But, you guys know, I think, understand where I'm going with this. You want to be able to see him on the field because you want him to be able to build up that confidence in himself more than anything, that he can still do it because his body will allow him to, that he's not going to have to necessarily think about every cut he makes. As Jeremy brings up a suggestion mentioning Kenny McKinley, that would be a great one. I like that one. But I think having him out there on the field just so he can believe in himself again. And then I know it sounds silly, but to know the fan base still cares about you. I know that sounds really dumb, but it's the truth, right? He understands. We talked about it at Media Day. New shiny toy comes in. Everyone's going to get excited about Spencer Rattler. He gets that. He's not going to change as a person. He's still going to be a good person, number one. But number two, he's also going to be a competitor. He wants to be out there on the field. No question about it. I think being able to get out there on the field and just hearing the fan base cheer for him, I think that's going to be powerful. And perhaps that could be this weekend against Georgia State, a team you should be able to take care of. Lady Bree, being a coach myself, I would want an athlete who did what he did. Walk on, earned a scholarship, become an All-American. That shows work ethic and heart. They really missed on that one. Again, talking about Jalen Foster. And we'll see. We'll see we'll see if Foster does get a call at some point. I know that sounds like crazy to some people, but it's really not. It just makes his journey a little bit better, or a greater story, I should say. Maybe not necessarily better is the right word to use, but I think regardless, Jalen is going to be very, very successful if he were to stay in coaching. And if he stays at South Carolina, even though they haven't specifically given him a title, I feel like he's a guy that could be extremely, extremely beneficial to that program. Xavier, what blemishes, Mike? This offensive line is fine. It was just the new scheme. Xavier, look, I've been very defensive of the offensive line, even going back to last season. I don't think they're as bad as some people had them portrayed to be. I think sometimes, it's not making excuses for what happened last year. It's over with. Okay, it's over with. Try to make sense of it. I think there were times last year, though, that it looked like it was the offensive line. When maybe the quarterback himself, which, by the way, it was musical chairs back there. 3 different starters played due to injuries. 4 starters played overall because of the decision to start to carry on Joyner in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Tight ends, sometimes they don't block down. And that's the challenge. And it's the God's honest truth, Xavier, when you mention new scheme. When you're doing zone blocking, the best way to describe zone blocking from the coaches I've talked with, I mean, shoot, I've had a long conversation with my dad. I don't even know where he is. I think he's at practice wrapping things up, heading into his 39th year of high school football. When you do zone blocking, everyone has to be on the same page. Everyone, it's like living in a house with like 4 other roommates. And if one person doesn't do what they're supposed to do, it throws everything off. That was the issue last year. That was the issue. And it doesn't necessarily have to even be the offensive lineman. It could be the quarterback misidentifying the mic before the snap. It could be the tight end not blocking down when he's supposed to, or he's blocking out when he's supposed to block down, or one of the offensive linemen screw something up. I mean, it's not like this like the offensive line is clean from everything. I mean, they made mistakes last year. But I agree with you. I think this offensive line took a lot of heat last year, and maybe rightfully so at times. They'll have a chance to be able to prove that there were just some growing pains with the new scheme and just some other things that came along with it. But I think I think that area, look, we can talk about quarterback and say that area is going to be the biggest, improvement. I think it's going to be the offensive line more than anything. I mean, it might seem like the quarterback position if Rattler goes out there and he's heaving things around and he's doing a good job, and I'm not taking anything away from him if he does that. It's the offensive line, though. It's the offensive line. It's the offensive line and the adjustments that Satterfield is going to make as an offensive coordinator from year 1 to year 2. That's what they need more than anything. A couple more comments I'm going to read before we wrap things up. 2 hours. Shoot, I said I was going to do this for an hour, guys. I'm going to have no voice for tomorrow. Ashley, I sure hope Luke knows that we care about him. Absolutely. I feel like he does. I feel like he does. But, shoot, right? New girl comes into school, right? All the guys are looking at her. Forget about the other girls that are there. I mean, that's essentially what it is. That's essentially what it is. You got to show that you still care. And I'm not saying the fan base needs to bake him cookies or whatever. No, it's just that when he's out there, he's going to feel it. He's going to feel it. Because this fan base certainly does appreciate him. I mean, Luke's an easy guy to cheer for. He does things the right way. He says everything that you would expect a leader to say, whether he's the starting quarterback or not. He goes about things the right way. He does. So whenever that opportunity comes to him this year, for him to step on the field, I think the fan base will show that, especially if it's a home game. John Abraham, another great suggestion there, Jeremy, coming in from YouTube. Ashley, again, we all love Connor Shaw, but I think you retire Alshon's jersey before Connor's. Alshon, I mean, shoot, everything he was able to accomplish at South Carolina. And that's the thing. Like, unless it's like a draft pick, right? Like Clowney. I mean, you can mention, it doesn't hurt, throw in the fact that he was a Super Bowl winner. To me, what he does in the NFL, or any of these guys for that matter, means nothing. Means absolutely nothing to me. What do they do at South Carolina? What do they do at South Carolina? That's the way I measure that. And I feel like a lot of people do agree with that, but that's something because, look, if that's the case, Tim Tebow doesn't have a statue out in front in Gainesville, in the swamp. Twisted Chicken, not every NFL Gamecock gets a jersey retired, but 14 for Phil and Connor should be on the wall. Marcus and Gilmore would be a great ads also. I don't think we're done seeing Gamecock jerseys get retired. And it's not like I'm saying anything that should be a surprise to people. But in terms of the players that haven't had their jersey retired yet, and I don't know anything when I say that, that'd be a great clip. I don't know anything. I don't know, or I haven't been told anything as far as, okay, there's going to be another player having his jersey retired. But you look at that list, you think about the legacy of Phil Petty, and I don't know. I don't know if they'll retire his jersey. I'll say this, and it's a dangerous area to always talk about. As far as Phil Petty is concerned, I think you just need to give it some time right now. I think you need to give it some time and separate from everything that's took place. And I know some people will find that hopefully that came across the right way. Phil was and still remains, even though he's not with us, a tremendous Gamecock. And he's going to be remembered because he had tremendous teammates that have carried his legacy. I've just always been a believer, and I'm using the Phil example, but Petty, but it could be anyone. Just give it some time. Give it some time before making a decision like that. But he certainly, in some shape, way, or form, should be remembered. And I think it was a tremendous, tremendous decision by Shane Beamer and USC to add him into the quarterback room with the big decal of him, the fat head, if you will, of him, because very, very, very impactful Gamecock. I think that's the best way to put it, impactful, and just the way that everyone talked about him just as a leader. I'm going to wrap things up here. I don't think we see any more comments right now, but I mean, shoot, I don't anticipate us doing Arkansas will destroy the Gamecocks next week. Well, thank you, Caleb. Thank you for bringing some positivity as we wrap this show up. We appreciate that. Appreciate you guys. So here, we'll get some real positivity. There's Joey. Luke is a true Gamecock. That a boy, Joey. That's how you help end things on a bright note. Appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. And I'm sure some of you didn't see the messages over the weekend on Gamecock Central or on Twitter saying that we were going to do this. So you're probably just like, what the heck's this? But this is something to keep in mind. Tuesday nights, we will do this. Typically, they will be an hour long. I know tonight we were about 2 hours long. But again, we're going to add a call-in function. I say hour, but if we had a call-in function and you guys are able to call into the program, it might be a little bit longer than that. But bottom line is, appreciate all you guys joining us tonight, whether you listen on Twitter Space, whether you listen to Twitter in general, YouTube, Facebook, wherever. Appreciate you guys joining us. And again, Saturday after the game, we will have a call-in show. Call in, let us know what you think. Instant reaction. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. And again, just very, very grateful for Brian Shoemaker and Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark, Colin, all those guys for being as understanding as they've been. Because as many of you know, with me being up here in Boston, that happened very last minute. That came out of nowhere. And I appreciate the guys over at WBZ for allowing me to be able to juggle two as well. So excited to be covering the Gamecocks for a 7th season. Excited to get back down to Columbia this season. And I'm excited to be able to connect with some of you guys. So if you see me when I'm back down there, I won't say exactly when I'm going to be back, but I will certainly make it known on social media. Would love to be able to see as many of you as possible. So don't be a stranger. Come on by, say hello. And if you're going to the game this weekend, enjoy the game. And again, we appreciate you listening to this. If you haven't had an opportunity already, head on over to Gamecock Central. If you're a subscriber, you'll get notifications every time when a new show comes out. And we'll also be able to, hopefully get you guys over at GC. Got a lot of good stuff. So everyone have a good Tuesday night. We'll do it again next week.